Hey everyone. So I just wanted to start off this video with a thank you, most importantly, for the response on the video last week, because, I mean, let's be fair, I don't think anybody could have anticipated what happened to have happened. I certainly didn't. I don't think anybody that I know who knew that this was starting did. But overall, I really just wanted to say thank you so much to each and every one of you who has not only watched the previous one, but is watching this one freshly, or has decided to come back and continue to watch my content and just show your support. You know, one of the most amazing things about the last video was how positive the feedback was in the comments. You know, I think that was one of the most positive comment threads I've seen on the internet. I'm preparing for that to change as time goes on, but you know, it was very humbling and I was honored to have seen that. And of course, I have to throw a big thank you out to Jordan Peterson, considering that most of you would not have been here without him having guided you here, which is completely understandable, but I am indebted to that man for doing what he did. But the focus on this video is actually going to be about something that was actually mentioned in the comments quite a bit, and one thing that really stuck out to me was a lot of the comments on wisdom and referring to me as wise, which is a major compliment for me. But it was also surprising because when you think of the word wisdom, you don't really associate someone like me, who's 19, who is young, who is still very much learning about the world and trying to understand everything that's going on within it. And, you know, that was one of the things that was common throughout those comments was, you know, the wisdom paired with, wow, you're 19, this is so wild. And, you know, it really got me thinking, you know, first of all, thank you. I'm extremely humbled by that. To be considered wise at any point in my life is, you know, extremely amazing for me. But to have just started doing anything and for people to be already saying that is something that I'm definitely going to have to make sure I keep myself in check for. I don't want to get too, you know, caught up in my own head. But, you know, once I got past the initial shock of everything that happened, I really started to think about, okay, well, what exactly is wisdom? It's not really a question that many people think of on a daily basis. I know I certainly didn't normally. But when you really think about it, how do you define wisdom? You know, and at first, for me, you know, the thing that jumped into my head was, well, wisdom in my mind is, you know, knowing when not to do something. It's kind of, you know, coming to a situation where, you know, there are options for, you know, there are choices to be made, and there are a lot of options within those choices. And you know which one isn't the right one, why you shouldn't do something. And, you know, that kind of intrigued me more because how do you get to the point where you have to make those choices? You know, what's the journey to get to the point where you apply that wisdom? So I started thinking about that throughout the week, and I came to a conclusion. And I just want to let you know that, you know, the way I'm going to structure this video and possibly videos in the future is that it's similar along the ways that I like to think. When I've come to a new question in life, I say to myself, okay, what is this? How do I understand this now with the information that I have now? And then I'll think on that for a while and I'll develop my own ideas. And then I'll say, okay, I've developed a general idea of what I think this is. Now I want to compare this with external sources and see how my conclusions vary or are similar with other people's. So I'll give my hypothesis per se, and then I'll reference a few things that I found online. So the conclusion I came to this week is that wisdom is, in a sense, the final destination of a three-staged journey that we take throughout our lives without even realizing. The first stage would be knowledge. And you know, when we're first born, we know nothing. We are essentially a blank slate. And we come into this world like a dry sponge being thrown into the ocean. We soak up as much information as we possibly can, just trying to learn all the time. Now, this thirst for knowledge stays present throughout our entire lives, but it is most prominent in, infancy and young childhood. And then eventually it gets to the point where knowledge kind of takes a backseat to intelligence. And what I mean by that is we start taking this knowledge that we have gathered over a period of time, and we start applying it to different things. We start trying to solve problems and create solutions through the knowledge that we already have. And that's when intelligence becomes more prominent. Now, this kind of stays at the forefront for a lot of our lives without even realizing it. School is, in theory, supposed to generate and cultivate that drive for problem solving within us. And, it takes part in everyday life. I mean, we all have things that come up that we need to try and figure out solutions for, and, I mean, it could be the simplest of things is, what am I going to eat tonight? You take, okay, well, what do I know that I like? What do I know that I am in the mood for? And then you say, okay, well, now I need to go get it. Okay, where can I go? All right, well, oh, this place is closed, so I need to go here. I mean, it's generally applicable to a lot of different things. Now, wisdom is a bit more abstract, in my opinion, because it really applies when your intellect cannot generate a sufficient solution because of the fact that there are usually multiple solutions that need to be, taken away to find the right one. And I think it's interesting because of the fact that it's really not easy to always know what the right solution is. I mean, you think about it, if you get into an argument with somebody, right, the first thing you want to do is, you want to show them why they're wrong. You want to just let out your rage. But most of us don't do that. Most of us, if we're in an argument, we get really mad, we allow ourselves to take a moment to kind of relax and understand, like, hey, like, let's just find the answer to this problem. Now, that in and of itself is a form of wisdom, because in my mind, wisdom is understanding what is most beneficial not only for yourself, but the people around you. It's coming to the best answer for everybody. And that's an abstract idea because it takes separating yourself from your own emotions to be able to come to that conclusion. And I think that's why wisdom is so often applied to people who are in older age, because they have lived a longer life, so therefore they have accumulated more knowledge. They are more finely attuned to using their intellect to create solutions. And because of their life experiences, they are able to separate themselves from their emotions better than somebody who is, say, younger and a little bit less worldly. And they can make those decisions with a more objective point of view. Now, another thing about wisdom is that it's not directly correlated to age. One quote that I love from the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark is, "It's not the years, it's the mileage." And though in the film he's talking about, his physical state, for me that stuck with me for a while, because to me I applied that to mental state. Somebody who lives a short but full life is going to have a lot more wisdom and a lot more to offer than somebody who lived a long but uneventful life. Now, it's rare that you find somebody who has lived a fuller life in a shorter period of time than other people, but it does exist. I'm not saying I'm that person, I'm just saying it exists. But anyway, so I came to the conclusion that this three-staged process is kind of how we go through life and how we come to the point of wisdom. And it ends with us trying to find solutions to answers, and the way we do that is separating our emotions from the situation itself. And I think another part of that is why we often go to other people for wisdom, because it's a lot easier for people who are not emotionally invested in the situation to offer sound advice. Now, after I came to those conclusions, I got to the point where I said, okay, this is what I can understand based off of the knowledge that I have now. So I took the time to start going to different texts, trying to find other places that had information on wisdom. One of the first places that I inadvertently found a piece of information that was related to what I was saying was in the foreword of Jordan Peterson's new book, 12 Rules for Life, which I just got recently and started reading. And in the foreword by Norman Doidge, he says a quote saying, "Cultivating judgment about the difference between virtue and vice is the beginning of wisdom." Now, when I read that, it kind of reminded me of similarities to what I had been thinking. You know, it's about separating yourself from, you know, the good and the bad in life through judgment. Now, it's not a direct correlation to what I was saying, but the judgment and, you know, trying to make decisions about solutions based on what is most beneficial, similar. So it's at least good to know that I'm somewhere on the right path. But more interestingly enough, I actually found an article in Psychology Today that I will link in the description that was about, it was a study related to what the general public thought about wisdom and what they related it to. And what I found to be interesting is that throughout the study, they discovered that people saw wisdom in 3 different lights. The first one being practical, the second being benevolent, and the third being philosophical. Now, while reading this article and some of the study, they related practical wisdom to people like Benjamin Franklin and Barack Obama. And practical wisdom is basically wisdom that focuses on day-to-day life and things that affect us in our own lives. And, you know, when I read more about that, I realized what I had thought about wisdom, what my hypothesis had been, was mainly focused on that. And it was really only within the framework of practical wisdom that it made the most sense. So it was interesting to see that, you know, what I had thought of was really only part of the picture, which makes sense, because if you don't learn and, you know, seek more information, you're going to only have a portion of the picture. So it was interesting to have my horizons broadened just through even one article. The second form, benevolent wisdom, is people like Gandhi and Jesus, and they focus more on both the emotional and societal impacts of wisdom, specifically how one should behave in their lives and how it might affect other people. Now, that weaves in and out of certain things that would influence practical wisdom, but it alone focusing on specific aspects of society and specific aspects of human behavior is a bit different. And the final part is philosophical wisdom. And that's people like Aristotle, Socrates, and even Einstein. And what they do is that they focus more on the bigger picture. You know, they focus on how do things in the universe work, and how do they work within the system? What influences them? How does that influence the rest of the universe? And so that's on a much grander scale, and that's a bit more abstract from something like, you know, how do I resolve this conflict with my friend, which would be more in the practical wisdom sense. So it's interesting not only to see that there are 3 different groups, but they are almost in an inverted pyramid. For instance, it's you know, practical wisdom is the small relative form, and then benevolent is a little bit higher, covering a bit more of society, and then philosophical wisdom is, you know, covering a universe full of topics. Anyway, those are my thoughts on wisdom. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I know I certainly did while making it. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like. If you really liked it, consider sharing, maybe subscribing if you want to hear more. But until next time, have a nice day.